Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we're coming at you with some Mortal Kombat 2021, the new Mortal Kombat movie, which actually I'm kind of surprised. We're almost at like episode 500, and we've never done any of the Mortal Kombat movies before on here, which is it's just weird when you think about it when you have 500 episodes.
Yeah, it's kind of came up like in passing conversation, or maybe you talked about a new game or something like that, because you're more of a Mortal Kombat fan than I am. I mean, I like it, but it was never my favorite franchise. For me, my favorite fighting game was always Street Fighter, and there's probably even a couple between Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, but I still always liked Mortal Kombat, though, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, so that's how I kind of feel too. It's like, you know, probably Street Fighter and Dead or Alive. Like, I always feel Dead or Alive is my favorite fighting game to play. Street Fighter is probably my just overall favorite, but then Mortal Kombat kind of trickles in right afterwards, because I think Mortal Kombat has like the second best roster of like characters, if not almost like literally as good as Street Fighter, because, you know, like just about every character in Mortal Kombat's cool. That's the thing, is they really just don't make too many funky characters in it, and they always got great storylines and so on, because I just had, you know, a Mortal Kombat marathon not too long ago where I played through 11. I went backwards. I played through 11, then I played 10, then I played 9 again, and it's just one of those ones, like, those ones are so much fun, especially 9. 9's just really like one of those games that's just got probably like the best storyline and single-player mode in any fighting game ever made, I really think.
I've seen a little bit of 9. I played a little bit of 9 at your place. I have 11 because I saw it for sale for the Switch, and I'm playing through the story now. I'm not done with it, but I would just, it was one of those things, you know, you get those buys where it's just like, it's a game you want to get and you want to finish it, but it's kind of more like, I got it mainly because it was only $14, you know?
Yeah.
So then like, you're like, you know what, I should probably finish this other bigger game first, then come back to this, because this could probably, the story mode in that could be knocked out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was saying, because that Mortal Kombat one, if you only have the first part of 11, and you don't have the second one, I think it's only like 3 hours long, maybe, that story, if that even.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too long. If you got both of them, then it's kind of like a complete story. But yeah, no, it's like they've always done kind of a cool job at that. And then as it kind of goes, you know, you get the original Mortal Kombat movie. I think just that in itself is like one of the most ultimate 90s kids like moments. You know, I feel if there's someone out there who might not understand that movie, I just kind of feel like, well, you had to have been there. You know, if you weren't there at that time period, you know, of 1995, and just, you know, Mortal Kombat just being the end game and just the awesomeness of all that kind of stuff and the soundtrack and all that kind of jazz that goes along with it, I feel like that's a hard one to sort of recapture to someone who wasn't there. Like, you know what I mean? If you're like the astronaut child from another world coming here looking at it, like, you know, it's just one of those ones.
Yeah, no, I get you. And it's also one of those things, like, I remember, because now, I mean, every so often, violence in video games, every so often that conversation pops up with, like, older people, but not as much as it once did. And I feel like something like Mortal Kombat, they might hear about that, younger people might hear about that kind of thing, but they don't understand, like, how much of an effect Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter of all things, and Doom, and Grand Theft Auto had, the effect they had on all that in the 90s. So the idea of a Mortal Kombat movie coming out, it was PG-13, may sound weird, but at the time, I get it, because who mainly liked it? Teenagers and kids.
Yeah, because, yeah, if you made Mortal Kombat in 95 rated R, well, a lot of the target audience is, you know, not going to be able to go see it. Or they're gonna do the South Park thing where they buy other tickets. They buy Wild Wild West tickets to go see the South Park movie instead. You know, that's always the danger about it. Nowadays, I don't think it's as big of a deal, but back then, that was always probably the danger about making a rated R movie. Is that, like, yeah, the kids might still see it, but they're gonna buy a different movie ticket to come on in.
Yeah, there's that, and the other thing about that is, like, now it's, when people still get on the, video games, those are for kids, aren't they? It's like, by that point, I just get furious when I hear that. I'm like, do you have the fucking internet? I'm assuming you have a phone, you know? So you could probably Google something, you know? I mean, I don't expect everyone to keep up with every little bit of it, but the idea of, like, yeah, well, kids are going to play it. Like, kids don't have $60 to blow on every week to go buy a game, you know?
Yeah.
Most kids at least don't. So and the idea that like this shit eventually aged with its audience, so it makes sense for like something like this to be rated R and all that. There's another tangent I was going to make. It wasn't so much that, but there was another tangent I was about to go on. But
I was just gonna say this real quick, just because I sent a text message to you about this, but I remember like I was picking up my mom's mail and she had one of her AARP Old People magazines, and it had Michael Douglas on the cover, so at least for me it was like, okay, there's the Doug on there, but it had an entire section of like video games and video game histories and so on, and I was just like, that's actually kind of weird. And I remember I was kind of just sort of flipping through it and so on, and it felt like it was literally meant for like, it's like, are you 75 years old and you feel like you need to finally catch up on what this video game thing is here? Well, here's like a history timeline. What's the new in-game what's the popular ones with the kids these days? Like, don't fall behind, old people. Like, that's what it really reminded me of. It reminded me like it was meant to be like a catch-up.
Now, I know last time you guys checked this thing out, it was by Ralph Baer, but things have gotten a little bit more, like even then, though, that would have been like, oh, fuck this shit. But, like, the whole thing of when people still get kind of cold feet about, like, movie studios, and we're going to get into the movie Mortal Kombat, but when people get, like, cold feet on, can we make this R? Is it bankable? I'm like, dude, it's been bankable for the last 30 fucking years.
Yeah. If the first Mortal Kombat movie didn't like tell you that it was bankable, like, come on.
And you could say what you. I mean, I don't like the second Mortal Kombat movie.
I love that one, but that's just me.
I know that, like, I know the hardcore fans, because they managed to get every character at the time into that. So even if they're just there for a minute, I know. I mean, it didn't really do it for me. But just jumping ahead, and I'm going talking about the Mortal Kombat movie we got today. I just thought it was okay, unfortunately. I wish I could come in here and say I really wanted to like it a lot. I really wanted to. But I just thought it was okay. And I like the original one. The original one more. What can I say? That one had more personality to it.
Well, I definitely agree there, too. Like, I'll say, like, I enjoyed this new Mortal Kombat movie, but out of, like, if you compare this to the other 3 Mortal Kombat movies, I guess you could say there's kind of other ones, too, but they're a little bit sort of different. But let's just say the main 3 being the first 2, the animated movie that came out last year, and then this one. Like, this one's definitely my least favorite of them all, because it's like, and also, I mean, like, nostalgia-wise and so on, like, Mortal Kombat 1 is just so good. Always takes me back. I watched it not too long ago, and it was just like, it just reminded me, like, dude, you're sucked in instantly. It's so good. It's so much fun. It's got the bright colors and everything like that. The second movie, I feel like it is it is corny. Like, I'm not saying the second one's not corny and doesn't feel like a B picture, but I still just like it anyways because it just added in all kinds of characters that you normally would never have seen in a movie, and it has just that. I mean, like, yeah, you got to put up the corniness and the bad CG and whatnot, but that almost feels like I like that as the charm of it, But the weird thing about this one is the new Mortal Kombat 2021, is that it has, this is, because you sent me a text, you're like, dude, it gives me like this 2006 feeling, and I'm watching, I'm like, it has the feeling of an Xmen movie, like an Xmen 1, 2, 3 era kind of film. Like, it just feels like that, just with the rated R-ness. That's almost kind of how it is.
But I feel like the kind of, when I say, not to like, not to split hairs, but when I say the 2006ness, I know first few X-Men's like 2001, 2000.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like, how do I put this? Like, I feel like 2006 and 2007 and 8 is where they started saying, you know what? Maybe we can start making these a little bit more violent and try to take it seriously, But at the same time, we don't want to go too crazy because we want to keep it in the realm of reality. So, and even though it doesn't really do so much the realm of reality, it's still, it kind of stays very simplified. And you're right. I didn't think of it at the time, but X-Men is kind of a good example of that.
Well, I think the 2006 kind of like thing, it makes sense too, because it reminds me of like, okay, that's kind of like, that's because that was like when we got a surge of violent movies, and I always use Rambo #4 is kind of the one that sort of, it might have been the first one to do it, but I felt like from that point on it was like, oh cool, violence is okay in movies again, and so on. We can go real hardcore, and then you had Grindhouse, you had Punisher, Warzone, there's just a handful of them.
Hostile.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff at that time period that like was, and that's where it kind of feels like that era, like, and it's weird that like we're not that far away from that era, but it seems like we've seen a lot of movies, it seems like recently, that have these like 2000s era vibe, like, you know, like almost like generally it feels like that takes like 20 plus years where you kind of have it where, like, you know, you have like a Tarantino like Pulp Fiction and it's like, oh, it's got a 70s vibe to it and so on like that. But it just seems weird to have like, hey, we got this we're trying to make movies kind of like if it was like Underworld or Resident Evil time period. The post Matrix era.
Even though there wasn't a lot of gunfire, I did get some kind of post-Matrix era from this, but a little bit of also of like, I don't know, I got like a weird combination of things. And I guess the thing with this movie, if I saw this movie back in 05 or like maybe 04 or something, I probably would have been like, oh, wow, that movie was awesome. Because, you know, yeah, they may have done this, they may have done that, but did you see the part where the lady with the wings gets split in half? Did you see this? Did you see that? But at the same time, when you boil it down, it is like it feels kind of like Dragon Ball Z. Maybe this isn't the best example, but like they have those episodes where they're just kind of training for a while. They're just training in the same spot, and it's like maybe a 2 or 3 episode arc. It feels like that. And because they don't even get to go to the fucking tournament by the end of this. You're thinking, okay, a little bit of training, then we're going to have the tournament. But the tournament doesn't even happen. Like, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, it is kind of... Well, the thing is, it's like... And now sometimes this is the weird thing. It's like, I feel like when I watch these movies off HBO Max and so on, like, it always just makes the movie feel like I'm watching a little bit less great of a movie. If I would have saw this in cinemas, which I guess if you weren't living in California, that's probably a possibility. But, I feel there would be it would almost make the movie feel a little bit more grandeur, but like when you watch it like at home, they always have that straight to DVD feel. Like I just picked this movie up like one of those ones that would have came out like, hey, we got the new Mortal Kombat game coming out, but pick up like, you know, the live action, you know, straight to video movie like tie-in.
Pick out or like, you know, like make a double feature of it. Watch Blood Rain 3.
Yeah, like it kind of has like that sort of feel to it. Now, granted, like I still think like when the violence is there, the violence is great. I think they got some good kills in there, some fun action, and so on. But I think the thing that kind of like the only thing that kind of like brings it down a bit for me is by having that Xmen feel is it like they've almost like minused out the colors in it, and they like, you know, Katana doesn't have, or not Katana, but Melina doesn't have any purple in her at all. Sub-Zero doesn't even have blue on him. It's like, it's one of those ones where it's like when I first saw him, I'm like, I almost didn't even think that was Sub-Zero because he was like so in like such a dark black outfit. You know what I mean? Like
I thought he was blue, wasn't he? Was like a dark blue, or is it more?
I mean, there probably was like that, like ever so slightly. Like someone would be like, yeah, that's like you know that blue that comes right before it turns into black. But like he was not, you know. I feel like at this day and age, like can't we like have, you know, you got these video game like characters. I think they need more color to them. You know, I don't know why people are still so afraid of color. You know, it's just like, can't we just get a little bit more color like into our stuff now? Like not this like super gray tone darkness and so on, you know. I mean, some of the characters I feel look better than others. Like I think Liu Kang looks really good. I think Sonya Blade does too.
Kung Lao looks
Jax
really
looks
good.
great. Jax is awesome. You know, he's got probably the biggest arc out of everybody in there. And then
Kung
Lao is like dialed into the max. But I just think of like, you know, Sub-Zero has that, and then, you know, it's just a couple. I guess I said Melina and Sub-Zero are the ones that could have stood out to me the most. That like, it's like, God, couldn't you just give them a little bit of color? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking much. It could be dark purple or dark blue, you know, but like it's just a little bit more color.
Well, let me just say this: spoilers ahead. This is where we're going to spoiler territory.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's Mortal Kombat, so I mean, it's, you know,
what?
If you played a Mortal Kombat game, you've probably seen some of these things happen.
Yeah, but I mean, not even just going into the main as the beat for beat, all that stuff. Now, the biggest problem I have with the movie, because it's like a mistake that they didn't even really make this mistake back in the day of like when they were first making video game movies. It's a mistake that they. I get it depending on what it is, but this is just so dumb to me, and a lot of people saying, you know what, I don't think he was that bad, or I think the idea of adding this new character, Cole Young, and making him the great, like the descendant of Scorpion, that is so fucking stupid.
Yeah,
it's so fucking dumb to me, and I don't know. I'm not trying to put it all on the writer. Maybe it was Suits leaning in over his shoulder, or whatever. There's a bunch of ways, because I think like, well, we need someone there to ask the questions. Yeah, you could have anybody ask those questions that are thrown into that. You could have Johnny Cage there asking the questions. You don't even need someone asking the questions. You could have Sonya Blade investigating, trying to find this shit out, and she finds it out for herself, or Jax, or you know what I mean? There's any number of ways you could have done this, and they get this. And for a minute, I'm like, okay, they're gonna maybe do a surprise twist. Maybe it's gonna be like he is like actually the bad guy. He's like the descendant of some villain, not descendant of before I pieced together is totally Scorpion. I mean, I figured it out early on, but for a minute I was thinking maybe he's like the villain of a particular villain. We're following in his shoes, and then he goes down the wrong path, and he becomes a villain by the halfway point or by the end of the movie. And now we just used him to introduce. Like, that'd be kind of interesting, but then it's not the case. He's just a made-up guy, and the thing is, what's so stupid to me is about having a surrogate avatar character for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Video games are already surrogate avatars. You already are putting yourself in the place of Liu Kang, or Sonya, or Kano, or Sub-Zero, or Jax, or there's so many other characters you're already putting yourself in. Of all the things to make an avatar character, why the fuck do you choose it to be a video game?
Yeah, no, well, because it just takes up a place. What I really think the whole point of that character is that it felt like they wanted to put, like, okay, if we're going to have this extreme violence and so on, we got to have a family man in there to back it up. That, like,
fuck that. Fuck him and his family.
And that's literally, like, that's what it felt like. It felt like it was there to sort of counterbalance the violence from Mom and Pop in Oklahoma. Like, he was 100% made so that it's almost that thing that, like, if you don't have the family man character there, you almost can't do these violent acts, because then it would look like you're almost doing just like some kind of like grindhouse film or something. But like, that's what Mortal Kombat is. Like, Mortal Kombat is like literally taking like all your best like ultra violent kung fu and action movies and Evil Dead type stuff and jamming it together to like this ultimate martial arts like experience. You know what I mean? Because that's, in a sense, the way I always look at Mortal Kombat is Mortal Kombat's like the American way of like, hey, you grew up watching all these dubbed kung fu movies and so on, and all your action flicks, including like Arnold and Jean-Claude Van Damme and, you know, all those characters and so on. And now it's like, let's just throw this together in like the most ultimate cool game and, you know, have this, you know, awesome epic thing. And I feel like, yeah, you don't need this weird family aspect to it or so. Like, it's not, in a sense, like, Mortal Kombat's not supposed to be family and so. And they've kind of been doing this for a while. Scorpion has, in some of the games in recent times, they have given him, like, sort of the family element, but he's always been more like the anti-hero, like, you killed my son, and I'm fucking pissed, you know, like that kind of thing. Not like the, hey, man, I got a family, and I'm not really a good fighter, and I mean, at some point I might have been, but obviously nobody's ever known about it.
Well, there's even something they could have done there. They could have, I mean, it would just make it a little bit more of an interesting character arc. What if the thing is, like, even if you do have this character who is not in the games, just as a character, he was boring as fuck. Well, and it's like, they could have done something with him where he is a really good fighter, but he makes more money if he throws the fight, you know? And they didn't do that, though. They just did, like, oh, yeah, I'm just down on my luck, and I just gotta hope one day I find my magic chi, which gives me golden armor and fighty sticks, you know? So it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not like, it sounds like I hate the movie. I don't hate the movie. I just think the movie's okay, because there are things in the movie that are legitimately good. The opening of the movie is legitimately good with Sub-Zero and Scorpion. That scene's cool. Kano is the best part of this movie. Yeah. Kano, like, I feel like that guy was either improvising or they had a separate writer for Kano, is what it feels like.
No, Kano was done really well. Like, he's, the whole way through, he's fun, he's funny. Because at first when I saw the trailer, I'm like, is Kano supposed to be like a good guy and he's just going to kind of change? It's like, no, I like how he was a bad guy the whole time. It's just they had to like sort of forcefully work together. And it was like, that kind of works out. I thought that was a neat arc. I will say Kano kind of made sense why Johnny Cage wasn't there at first, because I felt like, you know, almost like in a sense, if you look at it, Kano's almost like the bad version of Johnny Cage, because Johnny Cage would have almost like the funny puns and the stupid kind of like ideas and so on, and Kano sort of did that, but with a bad guy kind of element. So I'm like, well, I sort of see, you know, because, you know, at the end of the day, you can only have so many characters with so much screen time, so choosing Kano over Johnny Cage for this one, I felt like, well, you know what? I actually kind of like that, because a lot of times Kano never gets enough screen time and other things, so I enjoyed Kano quite a bit.
I think that I think you'd still do Johnny Cage, just kind of more of like a
Yeah, you do Johnny Cage. You make him the Cole character instead, or you take Cole out and you put Johnny there. That would have been what you did.
Well, I'm not even. I think he could have. I mean, you don't have to. He doesn't have to be the main character. Like, I honestly think if you are doing a Mortal Kombat, a Mortal Kombat story, and you can correct you know Mortal Kombat way more than me, but I'm going to assume you either make the main character Scorpion or Liu Kang. Those are my two. That's my assumptions of who you lean into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because definitely Liu Kang to me always feels like he's like your center main character of Mortal Kombat, like overall. And I think granted, I will say for this movie, I know they obviously didn't want to go with just like a straight kind of remake feeling that like Mortal Kombat 1 sort of was, because even like the Mortal Kombat animated Scorpion movie, that one kind of follows similar beats of like, you know, the original game and stuff, and kind of has, you know, the tournament, which is the Enter the Dragon style and that kind of thing. So I do almost kind of give it credit for doing something at least kind of a little bit different. But I do feel like, you know, here's another example, almost like take the Cole character. Okay, let's say that's Johnny Cage, and instead what it is, he's like a 40-something-year-old movie actor who hasn't had a good movie in like 20 years, but he has the marking on him and so on, which the marking thing's fucking weird, but like whatever.
That's fucking dumb.
But like, okay, that if that's what's going on, okay, we'll just roll with it. So he's got the dumb marking. And here's the perfect thing is I feel like, even though I know some people would think this would be like, oh, that's not how it's supposed to go, but like almost let's just say that like, or maybe even like, let's say he's a divorced dad of like, I was even going to say of Sonya, but you have to make Sonya older if this was the case. But let's just say maybe even he had a family and that daughter was actually Cassie Cage, which is like the main character of Mortal Kombat 10 and 11. Even though I know that that's Sonya and Johnny Cage's daughter, but maybe that would just piss people off no matter what, probably. But just for using this, like what we sort of have already and molding it. So he's an out-of-work actor. You know, he's just doing kind of like junk films. He's got his family, so we still have the family element, but it actually is like real characters. You know what I mean?
No, I get you. No, I think
that leads as our kind of main character, you know, into it. You know, instead he just takes over kind of like what the Cole is, but instead of just being like a half-assed UFC fighter, it's
chosen one bullshit. Yeah. I mean, I think that you could still do something like that with Johnny Cage. I honestly think that there's like a number of ways to go about it. I mean, shit, the animated movie that came out like 2 years ago, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I watched that not too long ago. That was really good.
That was super good.
And that's only like an hour and 20 minutes. This thing is almost 2 hours, and so much more happened in that hour and 20 minutes.
And granted, animation's always kind of like that. I mean, like, you know, that's how I always feel about an animated movie. Is like an animated movie can only be it can be like an hour, but it almost has like the amount of like time that like an hour and a half movie would be, and you know, so on.
And just so you know, I'm not trying to like totally beat up on this movie. I honestly. I don't know. I can't say for a fact. I mean, I'm just guessing here more than anything else. I don't think that it's really strictly the writer and the director on this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I honestly feel like they were dealing with a studio that didn't really know what to do with the very thing they own, you know, now. Yeah. They try to put in everything they have a chance to put into. And I think that it's like... There's an example I was going to make with this. Like... I know that the reason I know that sometimes people are given boundaries and they have to write within these boundaries. And these boundaries, the budget called for, few action scenes here, a few action scenes there. Beyond that, they're hanging out in this temple for the rest of the movie. Like, if those are your boundaries, I guess you got to try and find a way to make it work. And there's only so much you can do with that. But
yeah.
To me, on the studio, that's just so fucking stupid. I understand that the movie I'm talking about, the animated one, is so much bigger and so much more grander. So, because, you know, there's buildings toppling over. You know, Johnny Cage stumbles into a fight with Baraka. Then he has to get in, like, has to run out of a building that's fallen apart. All these characters have their own plot points happening here and there. But it still just kind of moved a lot better. It was a lot smoother. And I know you can condense information in animation, but I still feel like that movie just... It's like, all right, you already have the better version here. It's kind of like when you watch... Suicide Squad, and then you look at Batman Assault on Arkham. Like, you guys already had the better version over here.
Yeah, exactly. Or even the second, like, Suicide animated movie.
Yeah, Hell to Pay.
Yeah, exactly. There's one of those things. Well, this is another one that's always kind of an interesting thing too. Is okay, like I know in recent years it just seems like both Mortal Kombat movies and games and so on, they've been really like Scorpion's just been like ginormous. It seems like, and I know that people always kind of look at that as like he's like the biggest character almost of Mortal Kombat, but when I was growing up, and I wonder, was this the same way with you? Like, Scorpion wasn't ever the biggest character. I'm not saying he wasn't a big character, but it always felt like Sub-Zero was much bigger than Scorpion, like, just, like, in the 90s at least.
Real talk, and this is going to make me sound like a bitch, but I was one of those kids who I didn't play Mortal Kombat, not because I was against it, but just because, you know, parents would be like, you know, we don't want you playing the violent video games. Like, okay, who am I to go against mother and father, you know? And then eventually you go to your friend's house, like, okay, let me see what this is all about. And then, you know, so I remember like Scorpion being pretty big. I remember Scorpion and Johnny Cage and Liu Kang being big. I remember Sub-Zero was there too, but it was because it was, you know, the fire and ice kind of thing with them. Mm-hmm. But I always took it as Liu Kang is the main character, but Scorpion was somewhat of like the mascot character.
Yeah, but it's like it seemed like back in the day, and I'm going to use this because even in the 90s...
Well, he had his own solo game,
yeah,
too.
Yeah, Sub-Zero had his... It wasn't a Scorpion... I feel if Scorpion was the biggest character, he would have had his own solo game, not Sub-Zero. You know, so I feel like there was a turning point, like in the 2000s somewhere, that Scorpion kind of took over the role of where Sub-Zero was, and just became almost like, yeah, the mascot character. Liu Kang, I always feel, is a story-driven character, but I do feel that, like, well, because in a sense, what Scorpion's supposed to be, though, he's supposed to be almost like, you know, your anti-hero, like your Punisher, almost like character, where
Wolverine.
Like, yeah, your Wolverine. That's pretty much what he is for like the series, in a sense. You know, where Sub-Zero, well, Sub-Zero depends which Sub-Zero it is. One Sub-Zero is kind of a bad guy. The other Sub-Zero is a good guy. Just depends which brother you get, but you know how Mortal Kombat is.
There's always some blood feud or some shit.
Yeah. The other thing that was kind of weird, though, is like, we'll say it's like, in the beginning of this movie, it's like they made Sub-Zero like Chinese, and I was like, what? Sub-Zero, I've never seen him be Chinese in like any of these things. They're like two ninja clans fighting over in Japan, like, and that's like, well, why is he Chinese all of a sudden? Or maybe he always was. I don't know. I don't remember that ever though in any of the other things. That kind of threw a curveball to me.
I always assumed he was Japanese. Maybe I'm wrong here, but maybe it could also be one of those things where they're trying to be conscientious about the actors they hire. So maybe since they got a Chinese guy, they're like, let's just say he's Chinese in this version or whatever. Because even their swords, they had Chinese swords and not katanas.
Yeah, well, that might be the way it is, because people are so weird about that nowadays. Like almost like acting seems like nowadays, like God forbid you act outside of your own character. You know, it's just like. Well, those ones, like, in the olden days, it used to be acting was all about, like, hey, I can play a British guy, but I'm American. But nowadays, it'd be like, oh, don't you dare play that British guy now. Don't put that phony accent on. It's a racial slur now. So maybe it's one of those things. But that threw me off. I was like, why is he speaking Chinese? You know, and I got, like, the subtitles clearly, like, hey, dumb American, we gotta let you know he's speaking Chinese and he's speaking Japanese.
Well, might need to scratch that theory off because he's from Indonesia, so...
Yeah, well, who knows? But yeah, I just thought that was kind of a little bit weird. But But beyond all that kind of stuff, let's like instead of just kind of like knocking it down, because there is a lot of good stuff going on in this movie. I feel like we can focus on that, so it just doesn't always seem as negative. Because I will say the cool thing about it though, there is a lot of action in it. Like the movie always has a good pace. Like there is like a fight scene. It seems like at least every 10 minutes, if not even sooner than that. So you got some good fight scenes going on. When the violence is there and the fatalities are there, they definitely deliver. You get your blood and guts. You get like moves from the game, all kinds of things like that I think are pretty cool and kind of keep the movie going. Even if you got the weird kind of stuff in there, like, at least the flow's good. It's not like one of those movies where it's like, hey, there's this cool action scene at the beginning with Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and then there's not really another one till halfway in, and it's kind of short, and then there's the big battle at the end. At least the pace always has something going on.
Going back to Scorpion, I just want to wrap up things on Scorpion real quick. Because this kind of leads into me kind of complaining just a little bit more, but I'll make it quick. There's the whole thing we were talking about Cole Young character and who he could have been. For a minute, I was like, wait, well, he's the descendant of Scorpion. And for a second, I'm like, well, this is not what I would have done, but it would make it all seem like it's less in vain. I thought when he has, like, the knife thing for a minute, the throwing blade, if he when he unleashed his chi or whatever was going to happen, he would turn into Scorpion. Like, the spirit of Scorpion would take over him, and he would become just a vessel for Scorpion. And I was like, okay. I mean, it's not the preferred thing, but at least Scorpion's on the team. Scorpion's there to wreck house. And then it's just like, nope. He just summoned himself there, and he's just there to fight at the end for a minute. And I'm like, I guess it just that just pisses me off, just because I'm like, you have something a lot of movies been doing lately, and we'll get on the positive here in a second. But something I feel like a lot of franchise films been doing lately is, yo, here's that thing you like. But you're just gonna get a little bit of it, just a little bit. Just wait, okay? Just wait. And then you wait, you get to the end of the movie. Here it is again. Here's the thing. Oh, look, it's fucking Scorpion. And it's like, well, I mean,
yeah,
it's not like why is it such a big deal he's here now? I mean, for people who play the games, which are probably people watching the movie, they're used to him just being there. And it's not this big, like, oh, he's finally here. It's like, he's been here for years. Why are we... It's like Godzilla in, like, the first Godzilla remake.
Yeah, he's only in the movie for, like, 20 minutes.
Yeah, why the fuck are we tiptoeing around Godzilla? We know he's fucking there. Yeah, we know what he looks like. We've seen the poster.
We bought a ticket to see the movie called Godzilla.
Exactly. So it's like, it's kind of like, I noticed a lot of franchises been doing that lately. And then when they show him there, like, don't worry, we're saving it. This is the money shot. And then you get there, I'm like, yeah, it was cool. It was a cool scene, but would have been cooler if Cole wasn't there and it was just fucking Sub-Zero fighting him.
Yeah. Or it would have been just cooler, like,
the whole time.
Instead of having Cole there, like, why don't you just use, the Hanzo, the 1600s version, and that's our old man character that's leading us around. Like, almost even give him, you could even say the Raiden, because even Raiden in this movie, like, they make Raiden like such a dick in this one. He's just like,
this is what I got to work with? Like, hey, fuck you.
Like,
I just found out about
lost
this.
my white hair, so I'm pissed. He just has like that bald guy like angriness and stuff. Like, yeah, it's just like, because most of the time in the video games, Raiden's always like, okay guys, we gotta be positive, we're going into the final 4 game here. Like, don't fuck this up, come on guys, Earthrealm's in danger, we gotta do it. And then Raiden will mostly do something where he's like, okay, I bought the secret Gatorade from the guy out back in the gym bag. You know what, I'm against drugs, but I think this one time we might need to use it.
It's like just the redone version of that scene from Space Jam. Look, it's Raiden's secret stuff. Oh, hey, guys.
Because it's like the one thing I noticed in a lot of Mortal Kombat video games is Raiden's always trying to do right, but he always ends up just fucking everything up.
I opened up on 11, and clearly I missed some things, because Liu Kang and Katana are zombie people, and they fucking hate Raiden. And they're like, oh, we gotta go back in time again and stop this shit from happening.
Well, that's like literally playing Mortal Kombat 11. That's like watching Matrix 3 without watching the first 2. You know what I mean? It's like you really are missing like that, like the first part of the trilogy.
Yeah.
But
the whole thing with, like, plus they have the thing with Milena where she had, like, the whole time she has scars on her face, and then at the very last minute her mouth stretches open and you see all the teeth. I'm like, that's her fucking thing, and you do it right before she dies.
Yeah, I mean, like, granted, a lot of times in like the game, it's like it's always covered by a veil or something like that. So
I guess that's true.
So I will say I was glad that they actually did it, because when I first saw it, I'm like, boy, that looks like the half-assed way of, that's like your half-assed cosplay outfit version. Like, oh, she just has some blood splattered across her mouth and so on like that. And but at least they did show her teeth at the end. I thought that was kind of cool that they finally did put that in there and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But no, I do agree with the Scorpion thing, because I literally thought that the Coal Boy was going to turn into like Scorpion. I know he's like
Sailor Moon.
He's probably older than us. He's probably like 40 years old. He's got like a kid and everything like that. But he feels like he's like a 20-year-old character. I don't know why. But
what came to mind is I thought he was going to like, like hold it up, like, in the name of the moon, and like a silhouette comes up.
He
with
just like gets like naked and just like there's like glowing rainbow colors. Like, oh, finally the color came to the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it would almost. It sounds weird, but I do think that it actually would have been better if he was just straight up like he turned into like Scorpion power, instead of there being like, oh hey, hey great grandson, like, I'm here to save the day, Grandpa's back.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt. Then I'm like, oh shit, they had the balls to kill a family. Oh wait, no, they didn't. Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
That means the family's got to be there to something we worry about in the next movie. I mean, so now going to the positives though.
Yeah, because that's the thing is like it's easy to kind of just go to that, but there is a lot of good stuff going on in this movie. It's just that kind of thing where like it's weird where they kind of where the boundaries kind of seem to lie.
Well, like Kano, for instance, like he was probably one of the most fleshed out characters of the movie, and he was really funny throughout the thing.
Yeah, and plus I feel I said this before, but Kano's never really gotten enough screen time in either game or movie, so I actually kind of like that they sort of made him like a main character.
Now that wasn't Reptile they killed in the warehouse. That was just some random monster. Right?
I think that was Reptile, and this is the weird thing about Reptile. Like, as time has gone on, Reptile's become way more like animal-like. And I kind of like more when Reptile happens to be just kind of like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, where he's just another ninja. He just happens to have these reptilian powers. Like, and I know that seems it, but like I feel like they've made him just like such like a monster character. I mean, here he's literally a full-on monster.
He's just basically what's his name? Basically just Killer Croc.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, that part's really cool, though. I love when Kano, like, once they're done fighting him and everything and whatnot, and he just rips his heart out for the fatality and whatnot, and he's holding it, and he's just really enjoying it. And then one of my favorite parts in this entire movie, I kid you not, though, is afterwards he's sitting there, and he's drawing this, like, well-detailed sketch of him killing Reptile, pulling his heart out. He's like, oh, I'm going to make a comic book later. My life
so I fancy myself an artist, making myself a graphic novel. Like, there's just the small things he does too, where he says two things: your beer is shit, and you're almost out of it.
Yeah, so it's just like he doesn't like it, but it doesn't mean he's not gonna keep drinking it. So it's like one of those ones like the Kano moments are all great and so on like that the whole way through. I mean, I knew he was gonna turn on him. Like that wasn't gonna be like one of those ones like, oh, I've had a change of heart.
Yeah, well, it's also there's also the part where there's just a lot. It's just basically a lot of quick little one-liners, and he's the character that kind of helps bring levity to it, but in a dark way, not like in a over the top kind of Ant-Man and the Wasp kind of way. Where there's that part where Liu Kang says something like in the tournament, it's like, oh, not Liu Kang, it was Kung Lao. Kung Lao was all like, I am the descendant of the other Kung Lao, da-da-da-da-da, the great warrior of light. He's like, the music's all epic. He's like, yeah, I never fucking heard of it. Just like, bro, like he's not impressed with anything.
No, exactly. He's just one of those ones. And I even like that. There's even like that moment where like when Kano's battling Liu Kang for the first time, they're like, we need to do our training and so on. And I like because it felt like literally like if you brought a friend over and the first time someone was kind of playing Mortal Kombat and you just did the dick thing of just doing the trip attack every single time, and he just does it like 3 times. Where he's like, okay, well this time I'm gonna jump, and then it just like he literally jumps like how it looks in the old Mortal Kombat games, and then gets tripped again. Like I will say, like there is some stuff in there that they definitely do that's like, oh man, they really got that to kind of look like actually how it looks in the game. Like it almost doesn't look as realistic in real life, but like the fact that it looks like how it does in the game, I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. And they even have the whole bit, like what was the other bit he had, like where they just kept on talking shit to him to the point where his eye lit up and he finally unleashed his power.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because they're like the dinner table and like this shit has like Kung Lao. They also make like Liu Kang like a fucking dick too, because I'm not used to him being like such like, come on guys, we're gonna fucking trade a bunch of fucking pussies around here. It's like, Jesus, Liu Kang's got some attitude like for living in this cave with a bunch of dudes.
Well, there's also the part where he's like, okay, so what are the different powers? You get like fire hands, you get lasers, you like more than could be shit, like frisbee hat, just points at like, no offense, man, it fucking sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's even like I can't remember. It's like when they talks about like the coal boy and like he gets hit by a hat. He's like, you were just beaten by a fucking hat. It almost kind of bums me out that Kano actually ends up dying in it. I mean, you kind of feel like it does because I'm like almost like you could have like milked that character for a while. Like he should have been the character that like sneaks off and gets away, like one of those characters that like shit, I'm fucking out of here. One of those ones so he can come back in the sequel.
Well, I almost feel like maybe you can tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but I mean, people come back as like zombies and a lot, or like zombified versions or whatever.
Yeah,
do you think there's a possibility they might do that with some of those characters?
Well, they can always do that where they go down to like when they go to like the Nether Realm, because they kind of just briefly mention that in this one, so the Nether Realm wasn't really there. But I feel if you mention all the realms at once, it might be kind of confusing to like a brand new audience member. I don't know. I just feel like
Well,
put
they
it
just
in there
kind of they showed Scorpion standing by like a rock surrounded by fire. Yep, like I'm over here.
Yeah, because then they go down there for like Quan Chi and all those kind of characters and so on. A lot of those guys end up possess them all and then bring them back up. So it's almost, I feel like that was more like a video game one. Like, how do we killed this character off in the previous game? How do we bring him back? He went down to hell. He's now back as kind of like a zombie version. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, whatever works. Well, I remember they did that because like one game, which I thought was dumb. I mean, I guess it was a ballsy thing. It was like, Mortal Kombat is back, and it's back on the new generation of consoles. And then they're like, we kill Liu Kang off in the opening cutscene. I'm like, why?
It's like, didn't you guys learn that was a bad idea from the second Mortal Kombat movie? You don't kill off your main character. That just makes people angry when you do it right off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but I guess you had that whole back and forth, like, die, come back to life, eventually become a bad guy again and get fucked over and then become a good guy again.
Yeah, because that's always kind of how Mortal Kombat is. It's like the characters sort of rotate. Like sometimes they can be good or bad just depending on the situation and just the different realms and whatnot. But yeah, no, like overall, like the whole way through, Kano, he's great. He just chews scenery. He's got all kinds of good scenes and so on. I do feel like Sonya was done real well too. Like
she was good, yeah. Jax was good too.
Yeah, Jax is amazing too. I'm glad that they kind of give Jax good big parts too. Even like because at first that's like the way that he loses his arms because he always loses it differently. It seems like in each story, but like Sub-Zero like frees them off and then breaks them. And so
yeah, that was cool.
I thought that was badass. And then of course the monks find him later on, and they're like, I like when they first put arms on. They like put these like little weak-looking robot like
dainty little bitch arms.
Yeah, it's like one of those ones. I'm like, well, I know that that's gonna change at some point. You know what I mean? But he's just got kind of these weak arms. The weird thing about it, though, I will have to say though, is they have that.
Transformers moment with the arms.
Well, that and it's just like because people have like they have the Mortal Kombat insignia, like, not tattoo, but like birthmark kind of weird thing on there. And for some reason, that makes them the chosen one. Like I feel like that stuff, it seems like a goofy way that somebody's trying to explain how the powers work in Mortal Kombat when I feel like, no, it's just like Chinese mysticism kind of like, you don't ask why the powers work in Big Trouble in Little China, do you? No, they're just there. And I feel like someone wanted to try to make like a way that it was. It's like, well, you got this, you're the chosen mark for Earthrealm, and then once you get to a certain point, it's almost like this weird thing that like you got to go through like the training and the trials, and once you get kind of beaten up enough, it's like you unlock your power. Which that reminded me just sort of felt like an Xmen thing right there too. You got to go to like Professor Xavier Raiden, and he'll help you out.
Well, they're both bald now, so yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought it was weird that like when Jax gets like his full arms, it's like, oh, it's his power. It's not just like robotics.
Yeah, because that was confusing to me because it was just like his arms suddenly just get big and they turn into like they transform into like these big Jax arms. I'm like, I think we need a little bit of explanation on that one.
Yeah, because it's like once it's like, okay, cool, he looks just like Jax now, but like it's just such a bizarre like choice because that's the thing in Mortal Kombat is like I feel that it's got kind of two elements sort of going on in it. There's the magic mysticism of like the Far East, and then the other half of it seems to be is like super technology, like almost robot Terminator kind of style, like futuristic stuff, because that's where you start getting all like the robot ninjas and so on, like Cyrax. And that's where I feel like that's sort of where Jax's arms kind of even like they're like the original part of that is he's got pure robot cyborg arms. So it's weird to make it like, oh, it's like some magical power robot arm thing.
Yeah, well, anytime you can mix up magic and technology, it just feels a little weird a lot of times. But quick thing about the guy who played Jax. Do you know who else he played?
No, I don't think so.
He played Jimmy Olsen in Supergirl.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. You don't need fucking Superman. You got that guy walking around. Shit.
Yeah, dude, that was just like, it's like, well, I ain't taking this shit from Superman anymore. I'm going to get big and buff. I ain't fucking Superman's pal no more.
Superman's my fucking pal. He calls me on that little radio watch.
Who's got the fucking mustache now?
Clark calls, "Hey, Jimmy." "Yeah." Like, "I could use some help with Lex Luthor." "Fucking deal with it." Hangs up.
You just imagine that, like, just Jimmy Olsen just gets the power instead and whatnot. Just be like, yeah, Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, you know what I mean? Just like at the very top, or like Superman, Jimmy Olsen's pal, but just Jimmy Olsen's just huge fucking text.
I just like the idea of, like, fucking just Jimmy Olsen just like bench pressing, like, in the dark, all the lights off, like, like 400 pounds, listening to like Bad Brains or some shit. Just like Superman's like, "Hey, Jimmy," like, "The fuck you doing here, Cal?" Like, "Oh,
Well, I was wondering if you wanted to, come on by and, watch the Oscars with me. I was just thinking of something we could do together. Lois
just gets up, still lifting and holding like the bar over his head. Just drops it on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes hard eye contact, like, look a man in the eye when you talk to him. Like,
Oh, okay. But even the other characters going in the Mortal Kombat 2, like Cabal was actually, he looked really good. Like, they made him look just like kind of like how he looks in the game. I thought that was kind of neat. But it's weird. It's got like a mixed match. It reminds me of almost like what was X-Men Apocalypse, where it's like you had like a couple of characters. It's like, oh shit, like there's like Psylocke in her exact costume, looking exactly how she should. But then there's other characters that just let's just put them in just kind of generic clothes, and I mean, it's like I just feel like it's Mortal Kombat. Like, go over the top. Like, that's. You don't need to kind of have... It has that weird 2000s, like, let's ground it a little bit back in reality and so on. And sometimes I feel like, no, just go the distance. I feel like that's what this movie was just missing. Like, I still really enjoyed it. I still think it's got good action in it and so on. But it just needs to go that extra distance that I feel like we're still stuck trying to make this, like... There's, like, this last hurdle that movies sort of need to make where they just finally just go the full distance, whether it be, like, comic book movies or video game movies. It's just like, no. Just do exactly what's already been written down on screen for, video games for the last 30 years, for comic books for the last 50 plus years. It's already dialed in as much as it can be. Like, I don't see why people need to always, like, change it up as, like, the way they feel.
Did Natara, did she do anything before she got cut in half?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was cool that character was in there because I'm like, that's a random-ass character from, like, the mid-Mortal Kombat game series of, like, the PS2 era, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool she's in there, but she literally just seemed to get taken out real quick.
It seemed like that also seemed like a very X-Men moment. Like, here's this character for a minute before we just off him. And, like, maybe she threw a few punches or kicks or something, but I thought she was just flying around and she was swooping in. That's where Kung Lao did his saw blade attack, which looked awesome, which was really cool, and the violence in that scene was awesome. But once again, one of those scenes where it only happens like you could probably the super gory scenes you could probably count on like one hand the amount of time it happens, like 4 times maybe. There's her getting cut in half. There's Jax losing his arms.
There's Melina's death.
There's
reptiles getting the heart ripped out.
I guess reptile, and then there's.
I guess it's not a human, so it doesn't count. Not a real.
Well, I guess, but by that point, the heart thing seems so small. You know what I mean? By that point, like, I guess.
I mean, it's still like that would still make something like generally rated R.
Yeah, and you got the Jax caving that dude's head in with the watermelon thing.
Yeah,
watermelon his head in.
Goro gets chopped. I mean, there's quite a bit of action in there. I'd say.
Okay, yeah. There's
like
a couple
definitely more than like. There's definitely more than 10 pretty good violent scenes. Like, the violence, I think, still really good. I think, just the kung fu action and so on like that still kind of keeps up and so on. Really, what I actually think is because...
I guess I'm just thinking the gore you don't usually see in most martial arts movies. The level of gore of that, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, and then just even the regular just, like, fights. Like, the things that, like... It's just funny how it's, like, at this point now, it's like if a guy doesn't get his, like, head sawed in half, you're like, well, it's not that violent. Like, I'm just like the straight up, just the regular stabs and like cuts and bleeds and things like that. It's like felt like, like 30 years ago, you would have been grateful for just those moments in like something. But like now it's almost like you need even more. But no, I feel like you got quite a bit of that kind of going on in there and so on. It is kind of weird though also is because as they kind of battle through everybody and so on, they make Sub-Zero kind of like the main villain of it. I guess he's supposed to be... It almost has that feeling like they're going with like the Justice League, like 2017 version, where it's like, okay, Steppenwolf's going to be like the guy you're going to battle towards the end, but then there's this other guy looming in the background. Because even Shang Tsung, they don't. It's kind of weird that he was there, and this Raiden's just like, get the fuck out of here. I'm just going to teleport you. And it's just like, that's it. Like, no one's going to fight Shang Tsung.
No one's allowed in my clubhouse.
Yeah. Like, I would have, realistically, I think what should have happened there is a bit like, maybe like, cause the way they sort of set it up, it seemed like they didn't need to fight Shang Tsung for some weird reason. But they should have had, okay, Sub-Zero battles. And then when Shang Tsung's there, because really, Raiden really hasn't really thrown any punches for the most part, have Raiden fight Shang Tsung. That would have been kind of a cool way to finish the movie. Make that the final battle.
He can't interfere with the... He's not allowed to interfere with the actual fight, but if it's like a god against a god...
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like that because a lot of the Mortal Kombat video games, that's a lot of times how they end is Raiden's always the last one you sort of play as, you know. It's like takes a man, a god man to do a boys, where a boys can't do the job right. But
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I felt because it's like it has like that weird. It almost has. This sounds weird. It has like that Street Fighter, the Sonny Chiba type ending, where it's like, okay, we're gonna get our final boss battle and so on, and then it's like, oh no, cut the credits. Almost.
Yeah, it did have. That's the thing. As I watched the movie, I assumed the tournament was gonna happen, but then when you look at your watch, I'm like, well, not enough time probably to get to the tournament by this point. So you realize, but I think by the time Kano like fucked him over and let the portal the vortex thing down or the wall. Yeah. By then I looked at how much time was left. Like, nah, they ain't getting this tournament.
Yeah, and like what I was almost thinking was maybe they're gonna. This is almost like the pre-game kind of thing. They're getting sort of set up. I'm thinking that when it goes into the next movie, and we're thinking Shang Tsung's still there, so they obviously didn't defeat him. But I feel like the next one's almost gonna have sort of a Mortal Kombat 2 thing. So you're gonna have Shang Tsung there, and you're gonna have Shao Kahn. So I feel that's where maybe the tournament's going to be the second one. They're probably building this up to like a trilogy, kind of like in a sense. Like
I heard they have 4 more lined up.
Oh yeah, well I think nowadays they just like pull numbers out of their butt anymore just to like say like they got a lot going.
Press releases or whatever.
I think because Disney's just been doing that, where they're like, we got all this shit lined up. So I felt like, Warner Bros. Like, oh well, we got shit lined up too. Don't forget about us, but I feel like that they're really trying to stretch it. That's what they're going with.
No, I get you. Yeah, I feel like I don't. Somebody said this, and I'm like, it's not a bad idea, but it's also kind of a ballsy idea. And granted, something else already tried it, but it didn't do a very good job of it. I almost think, and I'm not trying to stretch it out and make a half-ass version, but I almost think like the idea of like making something where making a movie series where like, okay, this one it's going to focus on Liu Kang, and you get to he of course interacts with other characters from Mortal Kombat, and the next one has an emphasis on like
Sonya and Jax or something.
Sonya and Jax, yeah. This one focuses on Scorpion, kind of like what the Scorpion movie did, the animated one, where the other characters are there, but has more of an emphasis on this guy. And then we get to the last one, which is the big tournament. So now, I don't think that's a bad idea. Granted, something kind of tried that, but did a horrible job, and that was Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li. But if done right, I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, well, I think that because you could almost sort of, in a sense, this is the best way you could sort of do it. You could have almost like your ninja character, like, movie, and that would be like your Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and that's where you could have like Noob Saibot and all those other kind of characters in there. You could have, and that one could be the one where it starts you start showing the NetherRealm type stuff and whatnot. Then you can kind of have almost like your American military type characters with Jax and Sonya and all those kind of characters, and then you would have Liu Kang and his kind of like the Asian mysticism type section, and they all have to come together. I feel that would be kind of a neat one. You could probably even split up even to 2 movies, even if need be, like each section, and then they lead together. But yeah, I mean, there's always so many ways you can kind of go about it. I mean, I still will say in the Mortal Kombat 2021 movie, at least, by doing it, I mean, the way that they did it, kind of like. It's different than the first one, but it definitely has like the low. It has like just almost like the lower budget feel. Like, okay, we got the Liu Kang's like Cave of Wonder, We got the UFC gym, which I will say I love. There's a part because like they have that Sub-Zero battle where they're at like the UFC training gym with like the guy who wishes he was like Mickey and Rocky, but. There's a part like I love because after that battle, it's like the next day, and there's like a guy like cleaning up blood or something on the ground, and I just know that guy's like, "What the fuck happened here last night?" I knew we shouldn't have give out keys to the gym. You just don't know what people are gonna do at midnight.
Someone's having some kind of like Fight Club thing happen here, aren't they?
Yeah,
that or an underground fuck club, one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those things there. I mean, that last scene in there does kind of lead into like, because they're like, oh, we need to go out and find new warriors because Raiden's just not satisfied with us. So,
Well, here's the thing about that last shot they show of like Johnny Cage, the poster. There's a point I think where they'd have a tease for something. And we all get oh shit, but I think so many things have come up and then not got a sequel. So it's kind of like. Okay, all right, cool. I mean, I wanted to get a sequel. I wanted to get a sequel because I honestly think that taking certain things into account and probably listening to a lot of the same criticism. I think we're saying a lot of the same criticism everyone's saying about the movie. I think keeping those things in mind, I bet they would probably improve it upon the sequel.
Well, that's the thing, though, is I feel this is one of those movies that, like, I'll say, it's a solid start. Like, is it perfect? No, it's not exactly perfect or anything like that, but it is a very solid start. I feel that, like, the second one, if you just sort of worked with it more, you brought in more of the color, you kind of had just even more, like, just a little bit more, like, costumes and elements of the characters and whatnot, bring in the tournament and really go with it and don't have that kind of like, let's keep it kind of safe and grounded in reality and just go for it. Just go for it in the second one. I think that you could turn this ship just to being like, oh shit, they made just a pure amazing movie. Because once again, at the end of the day, like, I mean, like, just taking it as what it is, like not trying to be the armchair director or anything like that, it is still a pretty solid, fun movie. Like, I will say, at the end of the day, it's probably better than a lot of other video game movies. It's better than a lot of comic book movies out there. Like, it is still pretty good. It's just one of those, like, as you said earlier, like, if this came out, like, in 2007, you would have been like, oh, it's practically perfect. Because at that time period, you would have been like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not Mortal Kombat, the original one, but shit, look at all that violence and, stuff. But I feel like nowadays, it just seems like, can't we just get, like, can we just finally get our full I feel like that's what we're always waiting for. We're waiting just for the full version, and it's always like we're getting still, like, the kind of, like, just a little bit diluted. Like, it's like, no, don't give the kids full juice yet. Still put 25% water in there. You know what I mean? We don't want them to get all hopped up and sugary. You know what I mean? Just, like, if they get too excited because the movie was just perfect, they're just going to be running out of the theaters, like, with their cocks in their hands, just like animals.
Oh, that must be the Mortal Kombat movie. See, parade of kids running out with their cocks in their hands.
They're kids. Well, how old are those kids? They're like 35 years old. Well, yeah, but they're run out to the streets like the old Mortal Kombat ad, just shouting Mortal Kombat up into the air like maniacs. But now they got their cocks in their hands for some reason.
They're reliving their childhoods, they say, which leaves a lot of questions about what happened in their childhood. But the thing about, I'll say, because you said that it's overall a pretty good movie and it's not perfect. I didn't even think it was a pretty good movie. I just thought it was an okay movie. And but all that being said, though, I don't want this series to end because I want it to get better. And I think it has the potential to be better because there is just a lot of mistakes, a lot of things and cliches this movie does, which I think most movies are past. I think most adaptations are beyond, like, the Avatar surrogate character that's not part of this franchise. The thing with, like, oh, here's Scorpion finally, aren't you? Like, pretending, but it's like he could have been there the whole time, or he could have been Scorpion, or some other shit. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I did not hate the movie. I just thought it was okay, but I hope the sequel is better. So I want this movie to do good, just so we have a chance at a sequel.
Well, this is also the most important part of this movie more than anything else at the end of the day. And this kind of goes along with that new Marvel one coming out, the Shaolin. Shang-Chi is because, I mean, granted, okay, obviously this isn't like in theaters in California, but if you're like everywhere else, you probably can see this. I feel Mortal Kombat and Shang-Chi are they going to be the ones that, if those movies do kind of good, this could be a great resurgence of martial arts movies. Because the thing about the Mortal Kombat movie, the Mortal Kombat movie just has to do good. It doesn't have to be the greatest movie ever. As long as it just mostly makes money and overall people are still at least enjoying it, which I feel like it probably will have. There's always going to be like the negative Nancy's out there. There's like, it's the worst thing ever. But beyond that, like as long as you kind of go like, hey, okay, it wasn't perfect, but it was still fun and it still had good action and so on, and it still makes money, this could finally get those martial art movies coming back to America.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping for too. So, we'll see. We'll see. I think Shang-Chi has because that one.
That trailer looked that looked like the best Marvel trailer I've seen in a long time.
Well, it's like they. I mean the action. There's a part where he's on like the Muni and he jumps up and kicks two guys in different directions at the same time, and you can tell it's not CG. At least if it is CG, they did a good job of hiding it. So, I don't know. I just want, and plus they're using the Mandarin, who like the real Mandarin from Iron Man, is the villain. So it's like, oh shit, they're actually bringing in the real Mandarin. All right, cool.
Yeah, no, because like that one, when I saw that trailer when you sent that over, I was like, oh, this looks so much better. This is almost like one of the best looking Marvel trailers. I hope it's not one of those ones where I get myself too amped for it, and then it turns out to be kind of like, oh, it's like Ant-Man and the Wasp or something like that. But
well, I know we're more DC fans, but I'll say lately Marvel has been doing pretty good with the movies as far as for me. But there is like you get your occasional Ant-Man and the Wasp or your.
Well, because I remember I was getting pumped for Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think that was my main reason that going into there. I was just like, oh, God, that's like one of the worst Marvel movies. Oh, God, I hate to say that because I love Wasp and Ant-Man, but I don't know.
But that one though, just because I'm more excited for that movie just because. Yeah, it's a Marvel movie, so it's probably going to be good. But at the same time, I want to see a big budget, large-scale martial arts movie again, which I have not seen. I think the last big, actually the last big one I saw in theaters was Man with the Iron Fist. But
well, there's that one, and then the other one was the Bruce Lee one.
Oh yeah, the what was it about another thing where the guy he meets Bruce Lee and the other guy.
Yeah. Wong Jackman or whatever.
Wong Jackman, yeah.
That movie was amazing too. I saw that in theaters, and obviously nobody else did because I was the only one in there. But
there's also before that, I think, because even then they were still coming out very sparingly. I want to say even before then it was like Fearless is the last big one I remember coming out to theaters, and that was some time between. That was a long time between. I mean, I know there's probably other things between here and there, but I remember Fearless being the last big Jet Li movie to see in theaters where he was the main character.
Well, and the thing about Fearless that makes it's a little bit different than the other two even is that Fearless was a full Chinese movie, where the other two were kind of like, well, they still like, they're made in English and everything like that. They're almost like American kung fu movies. So it's like we don't even get like those imported Chinese movies coming to theaters like. Yeah, it's like one of those ones. It's like we need that like new resurgence because that was almost the thing. Is like when it's kind of weird because I feel like that it was kind of like a build up even in the '90s, and this all ties into Mortal Kombat, I guess, because I feel like the fighting games and just sort of like the kids into kind of martial arts of that time period built up to bring in Jackie Chan over to Rush Hour, and from Rush Hour on, we have this golden age of like. Martial arts movies coming back over to America, seeing them in theaters, and turns into Jet Li's run, turns into a couple others, so on. It sort of peters out pretty much about right after Fearless. Not saying there's not a couple here and there, but you know what I mean. That's kind of about the end of that run.
Was Unleashed before or after Fearless? I don't remember.
I thought that was before because I want to say that's because
we were in high school and Unleashed came out, so yeah, it had to be before.
Yeah. So it's just one of those ones. I'm just waiting for that next one. I mean, Tony Jaa ones because like some of those were in theaters, but not very many.
Yeah, Ong Bak got a small release.
Because I just remember like the Elephant Protector or whatever. Like they had the trailers, but they didn't really show it.
Yeah.
That I felt like that was the beginning of the end right there. It's like we know we got the trailer going for you. We're gonna get you all amped and excited, but then we're gonna pull the movie at the last second.
So hopefully, both Mortal Kombat and Shang-Chi can kind of get that in the full swing again.
Yeah, so that's like the main thing I think about this, if anything. Like, that's why you almost should support the Mortal Kombat movie, because I feel like it's only going to lead to better things as far as martial arts flicks go. It's one of those ones, if this movie and Shang-Chi just kind of do okay, there it goes. That's it. Another 10 plus years maybe we'll have till someone might think that will work again. And by that point, we might not even have theaters anymore, so you never know. We're all futuristic and stuff. We'll be walking around. We'll have movie theaters like imported into our brains, so we just have to lay back and just go, oh, and next thing you know, the screen appears, but nobody else can see it but us.
We'll just have to ghost in the shell it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's going to turn into. So, but yeah, overall, I think that definitely the Mortal Kombat, it's worth the watch. I don't think it's one of those ones like, I don't think it's going to make anybody so angry that they're going to like, I mean, there's somebody out there who will be, because there's just those people, but I think it's still fun and enjoyable. It's not like a Dragon Ball Z.
It's not a Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah, it's not Dragon Ball Evolution. That's what I was kind of getting at. It's like, it's still pretty solid all in all. It just has some weird choices, and that's almost how I feel. It has weird choices that almost could probably easily be sort of just rendered slightly different, and like, hey, there we go. Now we're all back to normal, but whatever.
I mean, if the next movie went out of their way and said, like, what happened to Cole? Oh, he died off screen. I'm like, oh, that's fine.
What did he do? Well, he slipped on a banana peel and fell back and hit like the back of his head on the stairs, and that's
on his way to go meet Johnny Cage. Actually, right as he was leaving that gym.
Yeah, or whatnot. But yeah, just get to the next one, and I think it'll all work out from there. Just gotta believe, and everything will be fine. But yeah, check out Mortal Kombat. Beyond all that good fun stuff, let's go to oldmanorange.com. Podcast, comic books like Pizza Boys, all our animations, and all that other fun stuff. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
Hey, we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.